Hello everybody, MegaZardX here, back at it again to give y'all another very exciting video. And yes, I know it's been quite some time since we had the latest 3D Zelda game in the series, that being Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. And a lot of people have been going through that game. A lot of people are pretty much maybe done with this game at this point in time though. But a lot of people, especially the Zelda diehard fans out there, might be wondering what could be possibly next for the Legend of Zelda series. Now we know it's probably going to be a big long wait until we have the next new 3D Zelda game, which probably won't happen out until Nintendo's next new system, though. However, that doesn't stop people from wondering and pondering, what could happen within the intermedium between these next new major releases for the Legend of Zelda series, though. So, a lot of people have been thinking, could we get some rumored ports? Or maybe could we get another new entry within the 2D Zelda series? Or maybe it's going to be another remake. Who's to say on that, though? Or maybe we get some kind of indie collaboration like a Cadence of Hyrule. You never know. But there's a lot of good stuff that could possibly happen within the intermedium. And, in today's video, I just kind of want to give my thoughts on, what I could expect short term, the midterm, and some things I would love to see within the next new 3D Zelda game. So this kind of basically a mix mash of everything Zelda to possibly think about and put it within today's video. So that's what we're going to be talking about here today, though. So if you really like this video, make sure you're going to hit that like button, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and that bell to stay up to date on all things video game related I feel like talking about and discussing. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump straight up into this video. So in order to better understand what we can actually expect to see within the Legend of Zelda series, it's very important to look at the history of what we managed to get within the past and notice the trends that we managed to get in terms of what we can basically expect within the future, though. Because lately, if you looked at the whole entire life of the Nintendo Switch, we've been basically getting some kind of Zelda game every single year, or almost every single year. With the exception, I think, of only 1 year, though, but we'll talk about that here in a second, though. And literally, we've seen some reports thanks to Eurogamer where it seems like, Nintendo has been really wanting to put out some kind of Zelda game every single year. And I think since we saw the sales of, Breath of the Wild and Anuma managed to see those numbers and stuff and saw how good that was for like just a rebooming renaissance for the Legend of Zelda series and just making it, that much more important, just standing right next to there, next to Mario, there's a reason why they really want to put out a Zelda game every single year. So let's go ahead and look at the calendar and see what we managed to get for every Zelda game for every single year, though. So starting off in 2017, we did manage to get, Breath of the Wild, and we had that Champions Ballad DLC. Looking at 2018, we had Hyrule Warriors, the definitive edition right there. In 2019, we had two different games. Link's Awakening, which was a remake of, the original one on the Game Boy, along with Cadence of Hyrule, which who would have thought about us having like an indie collaboration with the Legend of Zelda series, though. So that was really cool. Then in 2020, all things considered, we had COVID and stuff, but they still managed to put a game out that year for Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, a little collaboration with Koei Tecmo over there with an action RPG right there. In 2021, we finally managed to get Skyward Sword HD. And then in 2022, that was the one that was a little bit weird. It was kind of a little bit of an off year. We didn't really have like a brand new release, but they did manage to give us some NSO drops for like Majora's Mask on the expansion pass for the Nintendo 64. So we did have a little bit of something, albeit it wasn't nothing really big. And then lately in 2023, obviously we had The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. So literally almost every single year from 2017 to 2023, with the exception of 2022, a little minor right there, we did manage to get a Zelda game coming out every single year. And I think that's something that Nintendo really wants to do and strive even beyond the Nintendo Switch, even looking into what could be the next generation console for Nintendo. I imagine they still want to kind of keep this trend alive, albeit as long as they have enough, projects and things kind of working on between the next, big 3D Zelda games. They probably still want to have some kind of Zelda game dropping out every single year, though. So that brings into question, well, what could they possibly drop out for the year of 2024? Now, a lot of people were thinking that we would get the next Nintendo Switch system, with whatever that new generation console happens to be, whether it be a Switch 2, Super Nintendo Switch. I think ideally probably in the same form factor. Ideally, people were thinking this year, but according to some later rumors and stuff, It could happen maybe within the first few months of 2025. So let's play, devil's advocate and say, you know what? Worst case scenario, there's no new system coming out this year. What can Nintendo possibly put out on the market for a Legend of Zelda game? I think there's a couple of games that everybody and their mama has been, hearing about in the rumor mills and everything else in between. Yes, I'm talking about Wind Waker along with Twilight Princess. I think both of those two games have a very good shot of coming out this year, though. Now, whether or not we'll get something within like a duology and, the 2 for 1 and, Nintendo packaging that up and selling for $60 MSRP, that is kind of tough to say. I mean, honestly, if I'm thinking like Nintendo, I could easily sell both of these games for $60 a pop and not give them to you both at the same time. Since Wind Waker is a little bit older, we'll probably give you Wind Waker first, and then we'll turn around and give you maybe Twilight Princess at a later given points in some other future year. If I were Nintendo, that's probably how I would treat this situation. Obviously the players might feel a little bit, one way or another though, but I mean, that's probably what Nintendo would likely do. So I know they're probably sitting on these games just kind of waiting for a good time to pop them out though, but with you being really close to the next generation of Nintendo hardware, I imagine you want to put out something that's really easy, basically already done, maybe something you already been sitting down on for all of this time though. So I think, dropping out something like a Wind Waker will probably be the way to go, at least with this. It'll be a little bit unfortunate if we don't see Twilight Princess, and it'd be weird how they kind of price all of these different games and stuff though. But I imagine we'll probably only get one of those two games to actually drop out maybe this year though. Now, here's another important thing to think about is, we know about the 3D Zelda games, and those are freaking phenomenal though. But for the diehard fans out there, those Zelda fans out there, what about another 2D Zelda game? Something akin to like a Link Between Worlds. Is it crazy to say that it's been a little over 9 years since we had the latest brand new 2D Zelda game? Like Link Between Worlds, it's been almost a decade since we managed to have that game. That was the latest 2D Zelda game we managed to have right there, though. So honestly, at least from the way how Nintendo's been kind of talking about, and we heard some reports and stuff from Anuma saying how they really like the direction of Breath of the Wild and how they're probably going to go with that trend. And we saw it happen between Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. And what will probably happen in the next game after that, they're probably just going to keep that open world mindset for the 3D Zelda games. So I don't think, in my honest opinion, they're probably ever going to try to drop another new 2D Zelda game, at least for, at least for a long time to come though. However, to circumvent that, I think they are still going to drop out remakes of 2D Zelda games. So like, for example, we managed to have Link's Awakening that managed to drop out in 2019. So I think the next thing we'll probably get will be the Oracle games. So, Oracle of Ages, Oracle of Seasons. I think those two will probably be the next in the remake lines that they could probably give to us. I don't think they will come out this year, albeit it's been almost about 5 years since we had the Link's Awakening remake though. I feel like that might be a game just, put out on your next new system and have that be your featured Zelda game though, because you probably want a good solid Zelda game, something that not a lot of people have experience for, considering that that's a Game Boy Color game originally. I think that would be a really good game to put out on your next new system, because obviously you ain't gonna have the next brand new 3D Zelda game ready to go at launch though. So I'm thinking with the 2D Zelda games, I think they're just going to try to keep those within the remakes, circle. So you're kind of alternating between 2D remakes and your new mainline 3D Zelda games. I think that's how they're going to treat the 2D Zelda series moving forward. And lastly, what could we possibly expect within the next 3D Zelda game right here? Now, honestly, we're right off the heels of Tears of the Kingdom. And a lot of people have really loved the way how, the Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, how those two games have played with them being open world games, quite drastically different from a game like Skyward Sword that happened to be the first, game before both of those two. However, when you look at the sales reports, like it's crazy to think that Skyward Sword sold 3.5 million copies. And then you go to Breath of the Wild that sold 31 million plus, Tears of the Kingdom, 20 million plus. So there's a reason why I think Anuma came out and said, hey, you know what? We're going to go ahead and, and have all the future iterations of 3D Zelda, take the open world aspect. And that's going to be the design style moving from this point forward, though, which in all actuality, you know what? I feel pretty good about that. I like the way how they've been treating these open world games. I feel like there's definitely could be some improvements to these games though. However, I love the way how they're going with this. However, I think there's one thing that a lot of people kind of feel a little bit mixed upon, and I perfectly understand this, is the fact that the original dungeons that we had within Skyward Sword, Twilight Princess, or even Wind Waker, and all those other older 3D Zelda games, a lot of people miss those original puzzles, and then there's also a camp of people that love those original stories because when you're dealing with an open world game, it's really hard for you to have a really good story considering the fact how you can go anywhere out in the world and do anything. Like literally in Breath of the Wild, you can go to the volcano first, then you can hit the desert, and then you can go to the Faron Woods. You can do any of that stuff in any given order you want. So it makes it really difficult in order to have like a sort of really good linear story. I will still say this to my last days that I still think Skyward Sword had the best story overall, and that's one of the reasons why I still love that game, and it's still like one of my most favorite, Zelda games out there. While albeit I love the gameplay mechanics that you have within Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom though. So if you take a good story like that and mix it with some really good gameplay from the later two iterations from the Zelda series, I think they really be cooking with something. I think the answer to that is not purely have a game that's open world, but have something that's open zone. Now, hear me out on this because lately I've been playing through a game called Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. That game feels like it's open world, but it ain't really open world because it's actually open zone. Like you have different areas between the grassland, and then you have other areas like the desert, and then you have like the Gungaga region. Like you have different regions, and I think when you do it open zone, you can still have all of these different experiences with different topography and stuff. So you can get some different environments and it doesn't seem like a rough, rugged way of how you transition from like a desert to a woods, like you just climbing over some mountains and, that being it though. Also, when you do these open zones, you literally are able to have story checkpoints where you're actually able to go from point A to point B. You can still do things in whatever order that you want to do within the game itself. However, if you want to progress the story, you have to go to a point X. And I think that helps with exploration in general. Let the people do what they want to do on that, but still allow you to do some really good things story wise. So you still, riding your own horse with the realms and stuff in your hands. However, you're still able to do all of these things that the developer has managed to put out in a series of events that actually can help build with the story building and thus the world building and stuff. I think if they manage to go the open zone aspect for games such as like a Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and then we've seen it with Nintendo games themselves, like the whole Xenoblade Chronicles series, I think that can do some wonders for the Legend of Zelda series, and it could actually make it quite drastically different and give it a whole different vibe and feel from Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, along with having obviously a new art style direction that'll be different from both of those two games though. So I think those are some really good improvements they can manage to do within this. Now, when can we expect this game? Obviously, we know these 3D Zelda games take about 5 to 6 years of development time to be able to do. So it probably won't be until like 2029, almost close to 2030, until we have that next new Zelda game, which will probably be in the middle of the life of the next generation Nintendo console though. So those are all of my thoughts that I wanted to share and discuss with y'all about what we could possibly see and experience next within the Legend of Zelda series though. I think Nintendo has a lot of things cooking between their straightforward ports of their older 3D games, such as like, Wind Waker or Twilight Princess. They'll probably just space those out in given years so we can still get some yearly Zelda games dropping though. And then obviously we're just doing some big rotation between remakes of what could be 2D Zelda games and then obviously new iterations within the 3D Zelda series right there. I think that's the method that Nintendo's going forward though. And I think if they make some open zone changes in comparison to just doing it straight out open world, I think that can give enough diversity and enough of a differential factor between what could be a Tears of the Kingdom and whatever's the next Legend of Zelda series though. So that way you don't burn people out, and maybe you can pull back in some of those traditional classic Zelda fans out there that love the structure of how a Skyward Sword or Twilight Princess or Ocarina of Time actually managed to play out. Because you might have some greater story emphasis up in there, and maybe you can do some things with the dungeons as well, just trying to bring a little bit more so that back as well though. But honestly, that's all of my thoughts up in here within this one given video though. I'd love to see all your thoughts down in the comment section down below. What all do you think about the Legend of Zelda series where it currently is right now? Do you think we might get a Wind Waker or maybe a Twilight Princess dropping out some point this year though. And then, are your thoughts kind of similar to mine in terms of, new 2D Zelda games, albeit they'll probably be remakes, and some of the ideas I proposed out there for the 3D Zelda series? Like, are you kind of in the same state of mind as me, or you got your own ideas? I'd love to see your thoughts down in the comment section down below. But that's gonna basically do it in terms of this video right here. So if you really like this, make sure you're gonna hit that like button, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and that bell to stay up to date on all things video game related I feel like talking about and discussing. So remember, y'all, until what video I make next, see y'all.